Try to make mistakes you can live with. I'm Marley with Pacific Widow Solutions, and I help people who've been widowed solve problems so they can focus on grieving and healing. Now, the trouble with that advice is you don't know what's going to be a mistake, and you don't know if you can live with it. So it's really about not making decisions that could potentially go wrong if you don't think that the negative outcome would be something you'd want to be permanent. So there's a song by The Offspring called Staring at the Sun. And he says, maybe life is like a ride on the freeway, dodging bullets while you're trying to find your way. And in those first days, I really did feel like I was trying to navigate the new normal while all these problems were coming at me. And I needed to avoid making the worst mistakes as much as I could. I was given the advice early on that in the first year, there are 3 things you shouldn't do. You shouldn't change jobs, move, or remarry. And I didn't want to do any of those things, but I thought I might need to move for financial reasons. Now, some people need to move because they have too many memories in their home, or maybe their spouse died in their home and it hurts too much. That's a different thing. This was for me living in Southern California is notoriously expensive. And in addition to losing my spouse, half the household income was gone. And so I didn't know if I would be able to continue living here. So I asked my financial advisor to look into it. And then I realized I didn't know where I'd go. And so I made some criteria and decided to plan trips with the intent to figure out where I would go if the need came. Basically narrow it down to even regions, because I had no idea. And so I tried to find places that are cheaper than Southern California, within about a 2 days drive, and have great access to the outdoors. Because I love the outdoors, and I knew I would need something really special to replace the Pacific Ocean. Hiking trails, national park, even a new adventure sport. So I planned trips that were about 10 days, so 2 weekends and the week in between. And I put them intentionally in what I consider the worst weather, because I wanted to understand, would I even go outside? Or would I turn into some sort of indoor person, which is not what I want to do? And would my dog even be able to go outside? Because he needs to go outside too. And so I planned these trips to take my laptop and then work during the weekdays, but go out to restaurants, hiking trails, community theater, see what's around in these neighborhoods as if I was living there. And then even visit the local outdoor store, outdoor gear. Here in Southern California, they sell kayaks and skis and hiking boots and clothing, all those sorts of things. But when we visited Fairbanks, Alaska several years ago, we noticed that their outdoor gear store sold different things. Because stuff we don't need here in Southern California, they do need in Fairbanks. So I thought, well, this will help me figure out what people do for fun in these areas. And it was it was interesting, fascinating, actually. So I went on these trips, and it cost me, some money and some time. I wouldn't have planned to go in the worst weather if it was a vacation. So there was a little bit of a mistake there, but it just cost me a little more than it would have But I enjoyed each of these areas, and it felt worth it to me to understand what I might be getting into if the time came. Now, I was on one of these trips when my financial advisor called me. I had just been out to see some really lovely nature, and then I had a delicious meal. And I thought, okay, this is not terrible. I could live here. And then he called and said, you don't have to move. And I had this weight lifted, and I thought, I'm so glad that I don't have to move, and I can just decide if I want to. And for a little while, I thought maybe I wanted to. But when a year was up, I didn't. And I'm so glad I didn't put my house on the market and move, because that's not reversible here in Orange County. Once you've sold your house and moved, it's pretty much impossible to come back with the way housing prices are. And I love the ocean. I've really embraced living by the ocean now that I've been here a few years on my own. I go to the beach pretty much every day and go walking or hiking or whatever. And then I've even taken a sailing class so that I can be out on the water. And other boating classes as well. And I go to cultural activities all the time. I go to the symphony and the punk rock shows and all this stuff that you can't do everywhere. Because if I'm going to live here, I might as well really embrace it. There was another mistake that I made that I really wish I hadn't made. John and I had our 25th wedding anniversary trip planned. Our anniversary was a couple months away, but we were supposed to leave on a big, expensive trip less than 2 weeks after he died. It was about 12 days or so away. And I briefly considered going because it was all paid for and it still sounded nice, but I realized that so much of the activities we had chosen together that I would just be too sad doing them by myself. And so I decided to cancel it. And we had paid for expensive insurance because we were concerned we might, have something happen, whatever it was. Not John's death, that was unforeseen completely. But, you just sometimes buy insurance just in case for something this expensive. So I chose a friend to cancel it for me, who deals with insurance all the time and is very detail oriented. And I was talking it over with another friend, and I said, hey, I'm going to ask this person to, just blabbing about what was going on in my life. And she says, oh, she's so busy and I'm not. Let me help you with that. Let me do that for you. And so I sent her all my materials, and I thought it's so lovely that she's willing to do that, and I'm sure she'll do fine. And so I took that off my plate and put it onto hers. And I was happy she was willing. It was so kind of her to offer. But one of the first steps was to let the airline know we weren't coming. And unfortunately, she somehow got connected to a scammer and told him we weren't coming. And he said he would refund the money to our credit card. And so we had to give him the credit card number. And he was a creep. And it's funny, he knew. She told him what had happened. And he knew he was stealing from a new widow. And I'm sort of sad that that's how he chooses to live his life. But, that's what he does. And so there are creeps out there, and there are mistakes. And these are things that it's hard to avoid when you're in the initial phases of being widowed. I really felt what's called the widow's fog, where I couldn't make good decisions because I didn't have all of my normal brain power. And that's a fairly common thing, is that you end up having a hard time processing information, as I understand it. And so having people help you who you trust is key. And also knowing that if it goes poorly, it hopefully isn't the end of the world. So a few days after he stole that money from me, I figured it out and I opened a fraud alert with my credit card company and told them what was going on. And then I started going through the insurance materials myself. And the trouble is, they were going to deny the claim because we didn't tell the airline. And so I had to spend many, many hours talking to the insurance company, explaining to them what had happened and trying to convince them to honor the policy, even though the steps had been done incorrectly. And that's a mistake I wish I hadn't had to live with, because it took so much effort and it was so concerning, because I didn't want to be out those many thousands of dollars when we had specifically bought insurance to cover the trip. And I ended up, in addition to spending many hours myself, I ended up talking with a relative who stepped in for me, and he is good at dealing with corporations and protocols and that sort of thing, and he called on my behalf, and I'm ever so grateful. We got it sorted out. I got the money back, but I had to live wondering for many months whether or not I was going to be out these many $1,000s. And I think what we can learn from this is that, you know, you have to make the best decisions that you can. And you may not have the full ability to do so. And so try to make choices that, if it goes badly and if you regret it, it's something you can live with. Especially if you're considering one of those three things: moving, changing jobs, or remarrying. Each of those three things has such an impact on your entire life that if you can put them off, I recommend it. You can reach out to me and I'll try to help you directly. My email is pacificwidowsolutions@gmail.com, or my YouTube and Instagram are Pacific Widow Solutions. I wish you all the best. Take care.